Bueno, espero que se me esté escuchando. Bueno, después de mucho tiempo, regresé por fin a volver a leer grabándome. Y esta vez con The Lord of the Rings, un libro que compré hace ya casi un año, que no he avanzado nada. Llevo muy pocas páginas, demasiadas pocas páginas para ser preciso. De hecho, pues vamos a empezar a la mitad, ¿no? Vamos, o sea, este es un libro que contiene los tres libros que escribió J.R.R. Tolkien. Bueno, vamos en la página 51. Nos dice: estamos en el capítulo The Shadow of the Past. Es en inglés, así es. Entonces vamos a terminarlo, ¿no? Porque creo que es el primer capítulo y me falta no, el segundo capítulo, creo. O el primero, no sé. Ya ni sé. Pero bueno, vamos a leerlo. Vamos a la mitad, o sea que va a empezar sin contexto, así que pues. Que. Pues bueno, ¿no? Bueno, para entrarnos en contexto, el tío de Frodo pues ya se fue. Bueno, el papá adoptivo de Frodo, no sé si era, no sé, pero ahorita ya están leyendo el anillo, ¿no? Pero bueno, aquí dice así. Ah, said Gandalf. Ah, sí, se me había olvidado que era en inglés, ¿no? Entonces va a estar en inglés todo, entonces esto me ayuda para practicar mi inglés en la lectura, ¿no? Ah, said Gandalf. There is a very long story. The beginnings lie back in the Black Years, which only the lore masters now remember. If I were to tell you all that tale, we shall still be sitting here when spring had passed into winter. But last night I told you of Sauron the Great, the Dark Lord. The rumors that you have heard are true. He has indeed arisen again and left his hold in Mirkwood, and returned to his ancient fastness in the Dark Tower of Mordor. That name even you hobbits have heard of, like a shadow on the borders of old stories. Always after a defeat and a respite, the shadow takes another shape and grows again. I wish it need not I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf, and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. And already, Frodo, our time is beginning to look black. The enemy is fast becoming very strong. His plans are far from ripe, I think, but they are ripening. We shall be hard put. We shall be hard put to it. We should be very hard to put to it, even if it were not for his dreadful chance. The enemy still lacks on one thing to give him strength and knowledge to beat down all resistance, break the last defenses, and cover all the lands in a second darkness. He lacks the One Ring. The three, fairest of all, the elf lords, hid from him, and his hand never touched them or sullied them. Seven the dwarf kings possessed, but three he has recovered, and the others the dragons have consumed. Nine he gave to mortal men, proud and great, and so ensnared them. Long ago they fell under the dominion of the One, and they became ring rats, shadows under his great shadow, his most terrible servants. Long ago, it is many a long ago. It is many a year since the nine walked abroad. Yet, who knows? As the shadow grows once more, they too may walk again. But come, we will not speak of such things even in the morning of the Shire. So it is now. The nine he has gathered to himself, the seven also, or else they are destroyed. The three are hidden still, but that no longer troubles him. He only needs the one, for he made that ring himself. It is his, and he let a great part of his own former powers pass into it, so that he could rule all the others. If he recovers it, then he will command them all again, wherever they be. Even the three and all that has been all that has been wrought with them will be laid bare, and he will be stronger than ever. And this is a dreadful chance, Frodo. He believed that the one had perished, that the elves had destroyed it, as should have been done. But he knows now that it has not perished, that he has been found. No, that it has been found. So he is sick in it, and all his thought is bent on it. It is it is his great hope and our great fear. Why? Why wasn't he destroyed? Cried Frodo. And how did the enemy ever come to lose it? If he was so strong and it was so precious to him. He clutched the ring in his hand, and as if he saw already dark fingers stretching out to seize it. It was taken from him, said Gandalf. The strength of the elves to resist him was greater long ago, and not all men were strange from them. The men of Westerness came to their aid. That is a chapter of ancient history which it might be good to recall, for there was sorrow then too, and gathering dark, but great valor and great deeds that were not wholly vain. One day, perhaps, I will tell you all the tale, or you shall hear it. Or you shall hear it. Or you shall hear it, told in full by one who knows it best. But for the moment, since most of all you need to know how this thing came to you, and that will be, fuck me, probably, and that will be tale enough. This is all. This is all that I will say. It was Gil-galad, Elven King and Elendil of Westerness, who overthrew Sauron. Though they themselves perished in the deed. And Isildur, Elendil's son, cut the ring from Sauron's hand and took it for his own. Then Sauron was vanquished, and his spirit fled and was hidden for long years, until his shadow took shape again in Mirkwood. But the ring was lost. It fell into the great river, Anduin, and vanished. For Isildur was marching north along the east banks of the river, and near the Gladden fields he was waylaid by the orcs of the mountains, and almost all his folk were slain. He leaped into the waters, but the ring slipped from his finger as he swam, and then the orcs saw him and killed him with arrows. Gandalf paused. And there in the dark pools, amid the Gladden fields, he said, the ring passed out of knowledge and legend, and even so much of its history is known now only to a few. And the council of the wise could discover no more. But at last I can carry on the story, I think. Long after, but still very long ago, there lived by the banks of the great river on the edge of Wilderland a clever-handed and quiet-footed little people. I guess they were of hobbit kind, akin to the fathers of the stores, for they loved the river, and often swam in it, or made little boats of reeds. There was among them a family of high repute, for it was large and wealthier than most, and it was ruled by a grandmother of the folks, stern and wise in all the lore, such as they had. The most inquisitive and curious-minded of the family was called Smeagol. He was interested in roots and beginnings. He dived He dived into deep pools. He burrowed under trees and growing plants. He tunneled into green mounds, and he ceased to look up at the hilltops, or the leaves on trees, or the flowers opening in the air. His head and his eyes were downward. He had a friend called Diagol, of similar sort, sharper-eyed, but not so quick and strong. On a time they took a boat and went down to the Gladden fields, where there were great beds of iris and flowering reeds. There Smeagol got out and went nosing about the banks, but Diagol sat in the boat and fished. Suddenly a great fish took his hook, and before he knew where he was dragged out and down into the water, to the bottom. Then he let go of his line, for he thought he saw something shining in the river bed, and holding his breath, he grabbed at it. Then up he came spluttering, with weeds in his hair and a handful of mud, and he swam to the bank. And behold, when he washed the mud away, there in his hand lay a beautiful golden ring, and it shone and glittered in the sun, so that his heart was glad. But Smeagol had been watching him from behind a tree, and as Diagol gloated over the ring, Smeagol came softly up behind. "Give us that, Diagol, my love," said Smeagol over his friend's shoulder. "Why?" said Diagol. Because it's my birthday, my love, and I want it, said Smeagol. I don't care, said Deagol. I have given you a present already, more than I could afford. I found this, and I'm going to keep it. Oh, are you indeed, my love? Said Smeagol, and he caught Deagol by the throat and strangled him, because the gold looked so bright and beautiful. Then he put the ring on his finger. No one ever found out what had become of Diego. He was murdered far from home, and his body was cunningly hidden. But Smeagol returned alone, and he found that none of his family could see him when he was wearing the ring. He was very pleased with his discovery, and he concealed it, and he used it to find out secrets, and he put his knowledge to crooked and malicious uses. He became sharp-eyed and keen-eared for all that was hurtful. The ring had given him power according to his stature. It is not to be wondered at that he became very unpopular and was shunned, when visible, by all his relations. They kicked him, and he beat their feet. He took the thieving and going about muttering to himself and gurgling in his throat. So they called him Gollum, and cursed him, and told him to go far away. And his grandmother, desiring peace, expelled him from the family and turned him out of her row. He wandered in loneliness, weeping a little for the hardness of the world, and he journeyed up the river, till he came to a stream that flowed down from the mountains, and he went that way. He caught fish in deep pools with the invisible fingers and ate them raw. One day it was very hot, and as he was bending over a pool, he felt a burning on the back of his head, and a dazzling light from the water pained his wet eyes. He wondered at it, for he had almost forgotten about the sun. Then for the last time he looked up and shook his fist at her. But as he lowered his eyes, he saw far ahead the tops of misty mountains, out of which the stream came, and he thought suddenly, it would be cool and shady under those mountains. The sun could not watch me there. The roots of those mountains must be roots indeed. There must be great secrets buried there which have not been discovered since the beginning. So he journeyed by night up into the highlands, and he found a little cave out of which the dark stream ran, and he wormed his way like a maggot into the heart of the hills, and vanished out of all knowledge. The ring went into the shadows with him, and even the maker, when his power had begun to grow again, could learn nothing of it. "Gollum!" cried Frodo. "Gollum? Do you mean that this is the very Gollum creature that Bilbo met? How loathsome!" "I think it is a sad story," said the wizard, "and it might have happened to others, even to some hobbits that I have known. I can't believe that Gollum was connected with hobbits, however distantly," said Frodo with some heat. What abominable notion!" "It is true all the same," replied Gandalf, "about their origins at any rate. I know more than hobbits do themselves, and even Bilbo's story suggests their kinship. There was a great deal in the background of their minds and memories that was very similar. They understood one another remarkably well, very much better than a hobbit would understand, say, a dwarf or an orc, or even an elf. Think of the riddles they both knew, for one thing." "Yes," said Frodo, though other folks beside hobbits ask riddles, and of much the same sort, and hobbits don't cheat. Gollum meant to cheat all the time. He was just trying to put poor Bilbo off his guard. And I dare say it amused his wickedness to start a game which might end in providing him with an easy victim, but if he lost would not hurt him. "Only too true, I fear," said Gandalf. "But there was something else in it, I think, which you don't see yet. Even Gollum was not wholly ruined. He had proved tougher than even one of the wise would have guessed, as a hobbit might. There was a little corner of his mind that was still his own, and light came through it, as through a chink in the dark. Light out of the past. It was actually pleasant, I think, to hear a kindly voice again, bringing up memories of wine, and trees, and sun on the grass, and such forgotten things. But that, of course, would only make the evil part of him angrier in the end, unless it unless it could be conquered, unless it could be cured. Gandalf sighed. Alas, there is little hope for the there is there is little hope of that for him. Yet, not no hope. No, not though he posed the ring so long, almost as far back as he can remember. For it was long since he had worn it much. In the black darkness it was seldom needed. Certainly he had never faded. He is thin and thought still, but the thing was eating up his mind, of course, and the torment had become almost unbearable. All the great secrets under the mountains had turned out to be just empty night. There was nothing more to find out, nothing worth doing, only nasty furtive eating and resentful remembering. He was altogether wretched. He hated the dark, and he hated light more. He hated everything, and the ring most of all. What do you mean? Said Frodo. Surely the ring was his precious and the only thing he cared for. And the only thing he cared for? But if he hated it, why didn't he get rid of it, or go away and leave it? You ought to begin to understand, Frodo. After all you have heard, said Gandalf. He hated and loved it, as he hated and loved himself. He could not get rid of it. He had no will left in the matter. A ring of power looks after itself, Frodo. It may slip off treacherously, but its keeper never abandons it. At most he plays with the idea of hanging it on to someone else's care, and that only at an idea of handing it on, and that only at an early stage when it first begins to grip. But as far as I know, Bilbo alone in his history has ever gone beyond playing and really done it. He needed all my help, pardon. He needed all my help too. And even so, he would never have just forsaken it or cast it aside. It was not Gollum, Frodo, but the ring itself that decided things. The ring left him. What, just in time to meet Bilbo? Said Frodo. Wouldn't an orc have suited it better? It is no laughing matter, said Gandalf. Not for you. It was the strangest event in the whole history of the ring so far. Bilbo's arrival just at the time, and putting his hand on it, blindly in the dark. There was more than one power at work, Frodo. The thing was trying to get back to its master. It had slipped from Isildur's hand and betrayed him. Then, when a chance came, it cocked poor Diego, and he was murdered. And after that, Gollum, and it had devoured him. It could make no further use of him. He was too small and mean, and as long as it stayed with him, he will never leave his deep pool again. So now, when its master was awake once more and sending out his dark thought from Mirkwood, it abandoned Gollum, only to be picked up by the most unlikely person imaginable, Bilbo from the Shire. Behind that, there was something else at work, beyond any decision of the ring maker. I can put it no plainer than by saying that Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and not but its maker, in which case you also were meant to have it, and that may be an encouraging thought. It is not, said Frodo, though I am not sure that I understand you. But how have you learned all this about the ring, and about Gollum? Do you really know it all, or are you just guessing still? Gandalf looked at Frodo, and his eyes glinted. I knew much and I have learned much, he answered, but I am not going to give an account of all my doings to you. The history of Elendil and Isildur and the One Ring is known to all the wise. Your ring is shown to be that One Ring, by the fire writing alone, apart from any other evidence. And when did you discover that? Asked Frodo, interrupting. Just now in this room, of course, answered the wizard sharply. But I expected to find it. I have come back from dark journeys and long research to make that final test. It is the last proof, and all is now only too clear, making out Gollum's part, and fitting it into the gap in the history required some thought. I may have started with guesses about Gollum, but I am not guessing now. I know. I have seen him. You have seen Gollum? Exclaimed Frodo in amazement. Yes. The obvious thing to do, of course, if one could. I tried long ago, but I have managed it at last. Then what happened after Bilbo escaped from him? Do you know that? Not so clearly. What I have told you is what Gollum was willing to tell. Though, though not, of course, in the way I have reported it. Gollum is a liar, and you have to sift his words. For instance, he called the ring his birthday present, and he stuck to that. He said it came from his grandmother, who had lots of beautiful things of that kind. A ridiculous story. I have no doubt that Smeagol's grandmother was a matriarch, a great person in her way, but to talk of her possessing many elven rings was absurd, and as for giving them away, it was a lie. But a lie with a grain of truth. The murder of Diego haunted Gollum, and he had made up a defense, repeating it to his precious over and over again, as he gnawed bones in the dark, until he almost believed it. It was his birthday. Diego ought to have given the ring to him. It had obviously turned up just so as to be a present. It was his birthday present, and so on and on. I and so pardon. I endured him as long as I could, but the truth was desperately important, and in the end I had to be harsh. I put the fear of fire on him and wrung the true story out of him, bit by bit, together with much snivelling and snarling. He thought he was misunderstood and ill-used, but when he had at last told me his story, as far as the end of the riddle game and Bilbo's escape, he would not say any more except in dark hints. Some other fear was on him greater than mine. He muttered that he was going to get his own back. People will see if he would stand being kicked and driven into a hole and then robbed. Gollum had good friends now, good friends and very strong. They will help him. Baggins will pay for it. That was his chief thought. He hated Bilbo and cursed his name. What is more, he knew where he came from. But how did he find that out? Asked Frodo. Well, as for the name, Bilbo very foolishly told Gollum himself, and after that it would not be difficult to discover his country, once Gollum came out. Oh yes, he came out. Pardon. Oh yes, he came out. His longing for the ring proved stronger than his fear of the orcs, or even of the light. After a year or two he left the mountains. You see, though still bound by a desire of it, the ring was no longer devouring him. He began to revive a little. He felt old, terribly old, yet less timid, and he was mortally hungry. Light, light of sun and moon, light of sun and moon. He still feared and hated, and he always will, I think. But he was cunning. He found he could hide from daylight and moonshine and make his way swiftly and softly by dead of night with his pale cold eyes, and catch small frightened or unwary things. He grew stronger and bolder with new food and new air. He found his way into Mirkwood, as one would expect. Is that where you found him? Asked Frodo. I saw him there, answered Gandalf, but before that he had wandered far, following Bilbo's trail. It was difficult to learn anything from him for certain, for his talk was constantly interrupted by curses and threats. What had it gone into its pockets? He said. It wouldn't say no precious. Little chit. Little chit. Not a fair question. It cheated first. It did. It broke the rules. We ought to have squeezed it. Yes, precious. And we will, precious. That is a sample of his talk. I don't suppose you want any more. I had weary days of it, but from hints dropped among the snarls, I gathered that his padding feet had taken him at last to Asgard, and even to the streets of Dale, listening secretly and purring. Well, the news of the great events went far and wide in Wilderland, and many had heard Bilbo's name and knew where he came from. We, a ver, espera. We had made no secret of our return journey to his home in the west. Gollum's sharp ears will soon learn what he wanted. Then why didn't he track Bilbo further? Asked Frodo. Why didn't he come to the Shire? Ah, said Gandalf. Now we came to it. We come to it. I think Gollum tried to. I think Gollum tried to. He set out and came back westward as far as the great river, but then he turned aside. He was not daunted by the distance, I'm sure. No, something else drew him away. So my friends think those that haunted him for me. The wood elves tracked him first, an easy axe for them, for his trail was still fresh then. Through Mirkwood and back again, it led them, though they never caught him. The wood was full of this rumor of him, dreadful tales even among beasts and birds. The woodman said that there was some new terror abroad, a ghost that drank blood. It climbed trees to find nests, it crept into holes to find the young, it slipped through windows to find cradles. But at the western edge of Mirkwood, the trail turned away. It wandered off southwards and passed out of the wood elves' ken, and was lost. And then I made a great mistake. Yes, Frodo, and not the first. Though I fear it may prove the worst. I let the matter be. I let him go, for I had much else to think of at that time, and I still trust the Lord of Saruman. Well, that was years ago. I have paid for its sins with many dark and dangerous days. The trial was long cold when I took it up again after Bilbo left here, and my search will have been in vain. But for the help that I had from a friend, Aragorn, the greatest traveler and huntsman of this age of the world, together we sought for Gollum down the whole land and Wilderland, without hope and without success. But at last, when I had given up the chase and turned the other paths, Gollum was found. My friend returned out of the great perils, bringing the miserable creature with him. What he had been doing he would not say. He only wept and called us cruel, with many a Gollum in his throat. And when we pressed him, and he whined and cringed, and rubbed his long hands, licking his fingers as if they pained him, as if he remembered some old torture. But I am afraid there is no possible doubt. He hath made his slow, sneaking way, step by step, mile by mile, south, down at last to the land of Mordor. A heavy silence fell in the room. Frodo could hear his heart beating. Even outside, everything seemed still. No sound of Sam's shears could now be heard. Yes, to Mordor, said Gandalf. Alas, Mordor draws all wicked things, and the Dark Power was bending all its will to gather them there. The ring of the enemy will leave its mark too, leave him open to the summons, and all folks were whispering then of the new shadow in the south, and its hatred of the west. There were his fine new friends, who will help him in his revenge. Wretched fool! In that land he will learn much, too much for his comfort. And sooner or later, as he lurked and pried on the borders, he would be caught and taken for examination. That was the weight of it, I fear. When he was found, he had already been there long, and was on his way back, on some errand of mischief, but that does not matter much now. His worst mischief was done. Yes, alas, through him the enemy has learned that the one has been found again. He knows where Isildur fell. He knows where Gollum found his ring. He knows that it is a great ring, for it gave long life. He knows that it is not one of the three, for they have never been lost, and they endure no evil. He knows that it is not one of the 7 or the 9, for they are accounted for. He knows that it is the one, and he has at last here. I think of hobbits and the Shire. The Shire. He may be seeking for it now, if he has not already found out where it lies. Indeed, Frodo, I fear that he may even think that the long unnoticed name of Baggins has become important. But this is terrible, cried Frodo. Far worse than the words that I imagined from your hints and warnings. Oh Gandalf, best of friends, what am I to do? For now I am really afraid. What am I to do? What a pity that Bilbo did not stab that vile creature when he had the chance. Pity? It was pity that stayed his hand. Pity and mercy, not to strike without need. And he has been well rewarded, Frodo. Be sure that he took so little heart from the evil and escaped in the end, because he began his own ship of the ring. So, with pity. I am sorry, said Frodo, but I am frightened. I am frightened, and I do not feel any pity for Gollum. You have not seen him, Gandalf broke it. No, and I don't want to, said Frodo. I can understand you. Do you mean to say that you and the elves have let him live on after all those horrible deeds? Now at any rate he is as bad as an orc, and just as an enemy. He deserves death. He deserves it. I dare say he does. Many that lives deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Then do not be too eager to deal out death in judgment, for even the very wise cannot see all ends. I have not much hope that Gollum can be cured before he dies, but there is a chance of it, and he is bound up with the fate of the ring. My heart tells me that he has some part to play yet, for good or ill, before the end, and when that comes, the pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of many, yours not least. In any case, we did not kill him. He is very old and very wretched. The wood elves have him in prison, but they treat him with such kindness as they can find in their wise hearts. All the same, said Frodo, even if Bilbo could not kill Gollum, I wish he had not kept the ring. I wish he had never found it, and that I had not got, and then I had, and that I had not got it. Why did you let me keep it? Why didn't you make me throw it away or destroy it? Let you? Make you? Said the wizard. Haven't you been listening to all that I have said? You are not thinking of what you are saying, but as for throwing it away, that was obviously wrong. These rings have a way of being found. In evil hands it might have done great evil. Worst of all, it might have fallen into the hands of the enemy. Indeed, it certainly would, for this is the one, and he is exerting all his power to find it or draw it to himself. Of course, my dear Frodo, it was dangerous for you, and that has troubled me deeply. But there was so much at stake that I had to take some risk. Though even when I was far away, there has never been a day when the Shire has not been guarded by watchful eyes. As long as you never used it, I did not think that the ring will have any lasting effect on you. Not for evil, not at any rate for a very long time. And you must remember that 9 years ago, when I last saw you, I still knew a little for certain. But why not destroy it, as you say should have been done long ago? cried Frodo again. If you had warned me, or even sent me a message, I would have done it. I would have done away with it. Would you? How would you do that? Have you ever tried? No, but I suppose one could hammer it or melt it. Try, said Gandalf. Try now! Frodo drew the ring out of his pocket again and looked at it. It now appeared plain and smooth, without mark of device that he could see. The gold looked very fair and pure, and Frodo thought how rich and beautiful was its color, how perfect was its roundness. It was an admirable thing, and altogether precious. When he took it out, when he took it out, when he took it out, he had intended to fling it from him into the very hottest part of the fire, but he found now that he could not do so, not without the great struggle. He weighed the ring in his hand, hesitating, and forcing himself to remember all that Gandalf had told him, and then with an effort of will he made a movement as if to cast it away, but he found that he had put it back in his pocket. Gandalf laughed grimly. You see? Already you too, Frodo, cannot easily let it go, nor will to damage it, and I could not make, and I could not make you except by force, which will break your mind. But as for breaking the ring, force is useless. Even if you took it and struck it with a heavy sledgehammer, it will make no dent in it. It cannot be unmade by your hands, or by mine. Your small fire, of course, will not melt even ordinary gold. This ring has already passed through it unscattered, and even unheeded. But there is no smith's forge in this shire that could change it at all. Not even the anvils and furnaces of the dwarfs could do that. It has been said that the dragon fire could melt and consume the rings of power, but there is not now any dragon left on earth in which the old fire is hot enough. Nor was there ever any dragon, not even Ancalagon the Black, who could have harmed the One Ring, the ruling ring, for that was made by Sauron himself. There is only one way: to find the cracks of doom in the depths of Orodruin, the Fire Mountain, and cast the ring in there, if you really wish to destroy it, to put it beyond the grasp of the enemy forever. I do really wish to destroy it. I do really wish to destroy it, cried Frodo. Or well, to have it destroyed. I'm not made for perilous quests. I wish I had never seen the ring. Why did it come to me? Why was I chosen? What was I chosen? Such questions cannot be answered, said Gandalf. You may be sure that it was not for any merit that others do not possess, not for power or wisdom, at any rate. But you have been chosen, and you must therefore use such strength and heart and wits as you have. But I have so little of any of these things. You are wise and powerful. Will you not take the ring? No, cried Gandalf, springing to his feet. With that power, I shall have power too great and terrible, and over me the ring will gain a power still greater and more deadly. His eyes flashed, and his face was lit as by a fire within. Do not tempt me. Do not tempt me, for I do not wish to become like the Dark Lord himself. Yet the weight of the ring to my heart is by pity for weakness and the desire of strength to do good. Do not tempt me. I dare not take it, not even to keep it safe. Unused. The wish to wield it will be too great for my strength. I shall have such need of it. Great perils lie before me. He went to the window and drew aside the curtains and the shutters. Sunlight streamed back again into the room. Sam passed along the path outside, whistling. And now, said the wizard, turning back to Frodo, the decision lies with you, but I will always help you. He laid his hand on Frodo's shoulders. I will help you bear this burden, as long as it is yours to bear. But we must do something soon. The enemy is moving. There was a long silence. Gandalf sat down again and puffed at his pipe, as if lost in thought. His eyes seemed closed, but under the lids he was watching Frodo intently. Frodo gazed fixedly at the red embers on the hearth, until they filled all his vision, and he seemed to be looking down into profound wells of fire. He was thinking of the fabled cracks of doom and the terror of the fiery mountains. Well, said Gandalf at last, what are you thinking about? Have you decided what to do? No, answered Frodo, coming back to himself out of darkness, and finding to his surprise that it was not dark, and that out of the windows he could see the sunlit garden. Or perhaps yes. As far as I understand what you have said, I suppose I must keep the ring and guard it. At least for the present, whatever it may do to me. Whatever it may do, it will be slow. Slow to evil, if you keep it with that purpose, said Gandalf. I hope so, said Frodo. But I hope that you may find some other better keeper soon. But in the meanwhile, it seems that I am a danger. A danger to all that live near me. I cannot keep the ring and stay here. I ought to leave Bag End, leave the Shire, leave everything and go away. He sighed. I should like to save the Shire, if I could. Though there have been times when I thought the inhabitants too stupid and dull for words, and have felt that an earthquake or an invasion of dragons might be good for them. But I don't feel like that now. I feel that as long as the Shire lies behind, safe and comfortable, I shall find wandering more bearable. I shall know that somewhere there is a firm foothold, even if my feet cannot stand there again. Of course, I have sometimes thought of going away, but I imagined that as a kind of a holiday, a series of adventures like Bilbo's or better, ending in peace. But this will mean exile, a flight from danger into danger, drawing it after me. And I suppose I must go along, if I am to do that hand save the Shire. But I feel very small, and very uprooted, and desperate. The enemy is so strong and terrible. He did not tell Gandalf, but as he was speaking, a great desire to follow Bilbo flamed up in his heart. To follow Bilbo, and even perhaps to find him again. It was so strong that it overcame his fear. He could almost have run out there and then down the road without his head, as Bilbo had done on a similar morning long ago. My dear Frodo, exclaimed Gandalf, hobbits really are amazing creatures, as I have said before. You can learn all that there is to know about their ways in a month, and yet after 100 years they can still surprise you at a pinch. I hardly expected to get such an answer. Not even from you. But Bilbo made no mistake in choosing his heir, though he little thought how important it would prove. I am afraid you are right. The ring will not be able to stay hidden in the Shire much longer, and for your own sake, as well as for others, you will have to go, and leave the name of Baggins behind you. That name will not be safe to have, outside the Shire or in the wild. I will give you a traveling name now. When you go, go as Mr. Underhill. But I don't think you need to go alone, not if you know of anyone you can trust, and who could be willing to go by your side, and that you will be willing to take into known perils. But if you took for a companion, be careful in choosing, and be careful of what you say, even to your closest friends. The enemy has many spies and many ways of hearing. Suddenly he stopped as if listening. Frodo became aware that all was very quiet, inside and outside. Gandalf crept to one side of the window, then with a dart sprang to the sill, and thrust a long arm out and downwards. There was a squawk, and up came Sam Gamgee's curly head bowed by one ear. Well, bless my bird, said Gandalf. Sam Gamgee, is it? Now what may you be doing? Lord bless you, Mr. Gandalf, sir, said Sam. Nothing. Leastways, I was just trimming the grass border under the window. If you follow me. He picked up his shears and exhibited them as evidence. I don't, said Gandalf grimly. It is some time since I last heard of the sound of your shears. How long have you been eavesdropping? Eavesdropping, sir? I don't follow you. Begging your pardon. There ain't no eaves at Bag End, and that's a fact. Don't be a fool. What have you heard, and why did you listen? Gandalf's eyes flashed and his brows stuck out like bristles. Mr. Frodo, sir, cried Sam quicken. Don't let him hurt me, sir. Don't let him turn me into anything natural. My old dad will take on so. I meant no harm. On my honor, sir. He won't hurt you, said Frodo, hardly able to keep from laughing, although he was himself startled and rather puzzled up. He knows, as well as I do, that you meant no harm, but just you up and answer his question straight away. Well, sir, said Sam, dithering a little, I heard a deal that I didn't rightly understand about an enemy, and rings, and Mr. Bilbo, sir, and dragons, and a fairy mountain, and elves, sir. I listened because I couldn't help myself. If you know what I mean, Lord bless me, sir, but I do love tales of that sort, and I believe them too. Whatever Ted may say. Elves, sir, I will dearly love to see them. Couldn't you take me to see elves, sir, when you go? Suddenly Gandalf laughed. Come inside, he shouted, and putting out both his arms, he lifted the astonished Sam, shears, grass, clipping, and all right through the window and stood him on the floor. Take you to see the elves, huh? He said, eyeing Sam closely but with a smile flickering on his face. So you heard that Mr. Frodo is going away? I did, sir, and that's why I choked, which you heard similarly. I tried not to, sir, but it burst out of me. I was so upset. It can't be helped, Sam, as said Frodo sadly. He had suddenly realized that flying from the Shire would mean more painful partings than merely saying farewell to the familiar comforts of Bag End. I shall have to go, but... And here he looked hard at Sam. If you really care about me, you will keep that dead secret. See? If you don't, if you even breathe a word of what you've heard here, then I hope Gandalf will turn you into a spotted toad and fill the garden full of grass snakes. Sam fell on his knees, trembling. Get up, Sam, said Gandalf. I have thought of something better than that. Something to shut your mouth and punish you properly for listening. You shall go away with Mr. Frodo. Me, sir? Cried Sam, springing up like a dog invited for a walk. Me go and see elves and all. Hooray! He shouted, and then burst into tears. Fuck, ¿cómo que me tardé 50 minutos en un capítulo que no terminé hace semanas, meses? Carajo, no mames, ese fue el segundo capítulo. Ah, mames, 50 minutos. Chabón, está cabrón. Está cabrón. Pero pues ya no, ya. Esto, pues, aquí se queda. Espero que les haya gustado y pues nada. Chao, chao.